Alright guys, Copper Cutlass here. It's a easy Saturday, I guess. I ran over to my buddy Tim's house with the Mustang, as I call it, the Dollar General Special. He's a pretty good welder, and we TIG welded a baffle in place that will clear the rocker arms. You can see the burn marks, but we're not going to worry about that because ultimately we're trying to keep oil away from this breather. Even though this breather was baffled, it sucked in so much fucking oil. It's unreal. So we soak this thing up, and hopefully we will clear it out. And I am going to put an inline valve to close this when we use our AFR. And then once our AFR is all, kind of done for, because really once you tune the carburetor, nothing should really change unless something goes terribly wrong. You got a sticky needle in seat, or you have crud going through it. Then that's the point where you can kind of hook it back up. But a lot of guys actually remove it once you get their tune set, and that's it. And that's what I've been told. So we do have clearance between here and so you can still pull out those spent gases, but not pull out a lot of, or pull any oil at all, actually. So did that this morning. I picked up a belt because we kept tossing belts. Hopefully the one I have now is going to work. That's what I'm doing today. I'm just going to clean up the rails and the cylinder heads and clean the valve covers and get a fresh set of valve cover gaskets and put these fuckers back on. So we'll follow this up. Alright guys, so today is concluded. The valve covers are on. They don't leak. I'm going to go ahead and have a beer. I am done for the day. I didn't drive the car, but the idle is reading about 13.5, 14.0. A couple plugs are still wet. A couple plugs read out like they should for a 14.0, 13.6 AFR. I do know this car doesn't like to idle a whole long. And the time that I have been idling it is like above normal. So, at the track, we didn't see any fouling from idling for the amount of idling we did. And we did the type of idling you would probably do in traffic. The plugs clear out after you drive. So it's not that pig fat. And obviously we know we've made the changes to the high-speed air bleeds. We went from a 35 to a 28. And I want to see what it does at the big end, because once we made that high-speed air bleed change, I could smell a little bit of the richness in the fuel mixture, but the car didn't fall off on mile an hour. It was right there. Actually, it would have been a really good pass had I not spun, because it 60-footed at a 170. It spun just a hair, but it ran a 12.11 at 109. So it would have probably done good. And I think on that pass I actually spun the slick on the rim, which is no good. I'm gonna have to put a couple of screws, which are already drilled for screws, so I'm gonna put a couple screws just to keep things in place. Just some nice coarse button head Allens. I like that look a little bit better. Costs a little bit more, but just to keep things put. I don't know if I mentioned it in the other video, but you guys can see where the mark was and where the tire is. And that's why you do that. Not only can you see if you are filming the suspension of the car, your tire spinning, you could slow mode it and count that white line rotating how many times. But either way, when we made that change from the high speed from a 35 to a 28, it definitely changed it, but we ran it through the exhaust. So now I would like to run it with the headers open and see what that does, because obviously we know that the exhaust corked up kills 0.2, and we ran it with the exhaust all day. Now, ET didn't really fall off, mile an hour didn't really fall off, so in theory this thing should be kind of back into the 11s if we had a lack of fuel on the big end at the higher RPM, because it kind of labored a little bit above 6,500 RPM, and it also when I had open headers, it would still pop a little bit you know, it would break up, and that wasn't ignition because once we did the high speed air bleed change, you know, it didn't do any of that. So again, now that I got a good tune in it, I did put the O2 sensor in it, and now we can monitor it going down the track. Idle is good. Not so worried about part throttle because we weren't killing anything at part throttle on the track. The car was good. It wasn't breaking up. It wasn't loading up or anything like that. So we're pretty good. You know, going from the big end of the racetrack to where our pits are, it's almost half a mile loop because you're driving a quarter mile up and then a quarter mile around, and you're barely at part throttle in second gear. So, you know, you're driving around. I'm driving around maybe 1,800, 2,000 RPM. The plugs would look good afterwards. So the AFR gauge is really going to come in handy on the big end to see what it reads. Now that we know it's kind of working all around pretty good, idle is good. So I would say that part throttle is good. Even if it's on the lean side, you know, we're not killing anything. It wasn't popping, detonating, or anything like that. But now we're going to be able to see that too. So we got to be careful with that because we are running like 10 1/4, 10.3 to 1 compression with iron heads on pump gas. But I think from here, our next day at the track should hopefully be a little bit better. I did get a new belt as well. Obviously mentioned, we baffled the valve covers. I have the other side plugged up with a shank lug nut. I know I talked about putting a ball valve in it, but fuck all that jazz. That's cheaper and just as effective. It is a closed shank, by the way, not open. But once we get our tune to the happy point, then we'll just remove the O2 sensor, put a plug in it, and put our evac setup back in, and we should be good. Even with the one evac tube hooked up, this breather doesn't puff anymore at idle. So that's pretty good. We're still smoking a little bit out of the exhaust as we're pulling whatever residual oil is in the breather. We'll see if that gets any better. If not, next race I'll probably have a spare set of breathers with me, but you know, we'll see. But so far, so good. Just for the small changes that we did. Again, nothing crazy. I still have to work on the carb and rejet the primaries and actually square it up. So instead of having an 89 in the rear, I'm going to go 88 and 78 and instead of 76 and 89. So that should also help it a little bit. But we'll see. And then again, maybe I shouldn't because we are still yet to find out exactly what the car has done. So actually, I probably shouldn't make any changes right now, to be honest with you. But I should have the carb prepared to make a jet change. So the carburetor is going to come off so I can heli coil it, but it's going to go back together the way it was. So either way, share, like, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram as Copper Cutlass. I hope you guys have enjoyed following all of the bullshittery. And we are on par to hopefully next weekend, which is our second points race, not have nearly as hard of a time, and we're kind of a little bit more ready to go. So wish us luck. We'll see you guys around. I don't foresee doing any work to this car during the week at all, so you probably won't see me until next weekend. We'll do a little bit more videos at the track. I was talking with my buddy Tim, and like I said, I want to do a full cover on his Dollar General Mustang because for the bang for the buck, he's doing really good with that car. And it's a stick shift car. So we'll let you guys go.